I died and saw the fourth dimension, and now I feel alone in our universe. This is a throwaway, because I'm aware of how insane I sound. Please be gentle. So I've died twice, and I'll tell you what I've experienced. It's very hard to describe in three-dimensional language, so bear with me and understand that it'll sound crazy, but it's true. At least, it's my version of the reality that I saw after death each time. I could still conceptualize and somewhat measure time, but I wasn't fully separated from our dimension yet, so that may be why. Time moves a lot. This isn't the right word, but it's the only one that I have, faster, in the fourth dimension. What could be seconds on Earth is hundreds of thousands of years there, which also isn't right, but there are no other words for it. I traveled through this sort of tunnel. Try to think of it as like a wormhole, but it wasn't actually a tunnel, but like some sort of vessel, I think, or like some way to grant passage to the next dimension. I traveled for a few hundred years. I saw my life, of course, and then I learned the language of the universe. I saw runes and sacred geometry symbols on the walls of the tunnel, and over those few hundred years it felt like my capacity to understand the universe had greatly expanded. I was completely at peace when I reached the door. Now, what I originally saw freaked me out because I couldn't understand it, so it changed to a big wooden door with a handle very quickly so that I could grasp what I was seeing. If I willed it to change, or something else did, maybe, or maybe the dimension itself adjusted to my level of understanding. But it was a door, and that I could grasp. I could still hear my baby's cries for me throughout this, as if I was still partially on Earth. For context, I died on the table during 2 emergency C-sections twice, and then they were able to bring me back each time. I am no longer allowed to have kids. Those cries are what kept me from opening the door. I felt something gently inviting me, but it wasn't urgent and didn't force me. I somehow knew that I had all the time in my universe to make a decision if I needed it. I floated there for hundreds of thousands of years considering my options. It felt like a moment, but there wasn't any urgency, and I somehow knew that it had been longer, considering my options. Then I opened the door but didn't go through it. Something or someone in and around me. The more accurate description is that whatever it was all of us and more, yet none of us at the same time, and it wasn't necessarily a being, and it wasn't alive, but it wasn't alive or dead either. It just didn't exist in the same way that we exist. I didn't know mortality, and simply always has been and always will be. It isn't a right descriptor either, but it isn't a they either, so how to describe it in three-dimensional terms sadly told me not to go through the door unless I was absolutely sure that I did not want to return to where I came from in the same way that I was existing before. So, I sat there and looked through the door to decide, and what I saw, holy fuck, what I saw is indescribable. It was, I call it a tree, but it wasn't that, but it reminds me kinda of the tree of life. Our trees are an extension of whatever TF this is, but it was beautiful. It literally gives me a headache to picture it in my mind, but I can remember it as if I'm still there. I wanted to go through that door so freaking badly, but all I could think about was leaving my baby behind. So, I just sat there, for hundreds of thousands of years. I learned everything I could just from peering through that door, and there's so much that we don't know and couldn't even begin to imagine or conceptualize. Finally, I decided that I wasn't ready. And whomever that was told me to come back when I was ready, but it didn't really speak or communicate. I just knew what it wanted to say to me, if that makes sense. Suddenly, I was back in my body, and everything hurt, and it was like I was born again. It really threw me off to be thrust back into a mortal existence and a body of flesh. I feel like one of those bagged tents, where you unpack them, but can't get them back in the bag just right. So you just shove it all in the bag and hope that it stays in and doesn't break. For a few weeks after each time I kept having out-of-body experiences, and was just stuck between the 2 dimensions, I think. My dreams were of that dimension, and I met the pale-faced man, both when I was dead. He was in another form, and I still chat with him in my dreams sometimes. He's always going on about wanting me to take some sort of key, and I have this sinking feeling that there's no turning back once I take it, and he's tried to explain what it's for, but I can't grasp it unless I actually take the key, so if I ever will take it in this lifetime. But those weren't the only weird things that happened after I came back. I felt these vibrations off of everything and everyone. Everything and everyone was suddenly alive in a way that I didn't know they could be. I could feel what plants and animals were feeling and needing. I could feel the intense emotions of others. I could feel when someone else had been to or was close to going to the fourth dimension. This went on for months the first time, and I honestly feel it even more strongly this time. It'll fade like it did the last time, but I kind of don't want it to. Do you know what it's like to put your bare feet in the dirt and feel the earth breathing beneath you? Do you know what it's like to truly speak to a tree? Would you ever give that up after gaining that ability? I honestly think that we all have that ability, but actively choose not to unlock it. I think that the concept of it scares us without even realizing it. Most of all, I feel that dimension calling me every day, and I want to go to it so bad and learn everything. I want to hold on to what I call the knowing. I want to take the key, and I want to go through that door. Also, I don't think that the key is to that door, because I would have understood that. It's something else. But anyways, I want it all, but I also don't want to give up my mortality yet. It's a special gift that a select few get to experience. I want to see my children grow up, and I want to feel what it's like to be old. I want to see where the world will go from this lens, if that makes sense. It's such a complex feeling to describe. It's as if I have one foot in each place. Please tell me that someone else has experienced this. I feel so alone in this. No one can understand, and I sound crazy every time I try to explain what I've experienced. I just need to know that I'm not alone in this. I need to know that other people have experienced this too, and I want to try to make sense of it or, at least, relate on a human level.